So I'm here with my friend Jack Canfield to talk about my project Love is the True Black. And the first question I wanted to ask you was, when we did this project in Arizona last year at your Train the Trainer training, the message that you wrote on your arms was choose love, not fear. And I wondered if you could tell us what that means to you and why you chose that message.
Well, I believe that there's really only two emotions that really matter, and that everything else is a variation or a ancillary to that emotion. So, like for fear is what leads to greed, it's what leads to jealousy and resentment, all those kind of negative feelings. And love, all the aspects of love. If you think of love like a diamond, there's joy and compassion and generosity and patience. Those are all qualities of love. And so really it boils down to you're either coming from love or you're coming from fear. And I think that who we're programmed to be, how we're set up, how we're wired up, is to love. That's our essence. And so for me, if we're coming from love, then my experience is everything works. And if we're coming from fear, then we're creating barriers around ourselves to protect ourselves. When we create barriers, people want to attack us. You know, people rarely attack churches, although there's been a little of that lately, in some of the Middle East and so forth. But generally, we attack forts because the forts are fortified, and we want to know what's behind there. The treasures are behind the forts. So when we go like this, people want to pull us open. And so when we're open and vulnerable, people don't attack us. They don't want to hurt us. You see a person that's limping or a little baby kitten, you want to take care of it. And so that naturally evokes the proper response that I think allows for more success, more joy, more relationship fulfillment, whatever. And fear just creates this kind of energy, is pushing things away. And in the law of attraction, which I'm a big teacher of. I was about to say,
you're talking about like attracting like.
Exactly. So when you're in fear, you're going to attract more things to be afraid of, unfortunately. I remember reading an article, it blew me away, about a guy in Florida who was deathly afraid that he was going to be eaten by an alligator. Mm-hmm. And he lived like miles from the swamps. And this alligator found its way into his backyard and bit the guy. It's like, come on, give me a break. So I believe that we're creating our reality out of our emotions and out of our thoughts. And we have thoughts of fear, and we have the emotion of fear, and we have thoughts of love, and we have emotions of love. So for me, I've really come down to the conclusion after 71 years of living that love is really what it's all about. It sounds hackneyed and trite and corny, but it really is the essence of everything. I was just leading a teleseminar last night with a friend of mine, and we were talking about money, and that everything is energy. And money is basically energy. It's contained energy that you can trade for things. It's the energy of my labor. I get the energy of the money that I can then go and buy something with and get the energy of that. And so really, if everything is energy and money is energy, then basically it's all love. And so when we run our business from love, and we want to be of service, we want to contribute, we want to care for people, as opposed to this belief that there's a limited amount of resources, and we're supposed to compete for those, and we're going to have to kill other people to get enough water or enough firewood or whatever. That creates war. When we realize there's enough food on the planet for everybody, it's just a distribution problem, then we don't have to be in fear, we can open up and share. And that's where generosity comes from the understanding that there's enough.
I think it's interesting that you make that connection too between money and love and business and love, because I think that that's a scenario that typically we don't naturally associate love with business. When people hear that message, choose love, not fear, it's easy to think, oh, well, perhaps he means in a personal sense or in my day-to-day life when I'm interacting with my family or with my spouse or whomever. But really, it's an option to make that choice in every area of your life.
It's true. I was talking this morning, I'm interviewing people for a book I'm doing called Living the Success Principles, people who've lived the success principles that I write about in my book, and to inspire other people to go, wow, look at those lives. Those were changed by those principles. Maybe I ought to operate with those principles. I was interviewing a man named Paul Hutchinson this morning, he was 15 when his dad introduced him to Dale Carnegie. And he said, by the time I was 21, I had this huge personal development library, and his first real mentor said, you've got to read these books by Jack Canfield. And he started out, kind of middle-class kid and never graduated from college. And he now has 1,000 employees who work for him. Over 350 have MBAs and things like that. He has $4.5 billion worth of assets in the company.
Wow.
They have 40,000 tenants in their buildings that they rent out to. And he said, our tenants love us because we fix everything. We treat them like we want our kids to be treated if they were renting an apartment somewhere. And he said, what I found is the more I do that, the more people want to play with me, the more they want to be part of it. So when you give love, it comes back. When you give service, it comes back. And he's 43 and he's extremely, extremely wealthy, and it's all coming from a place. And he said to me, I tell you, my belief is that it's all about being loving, and when I do that in business, it always comes back multiplied.
It's amazing to hear those types of stories and to hear that languaging being brought into that context more. Yeah,
I think you see it everywhere. There's a wonderful book out. I forget who wrote it. I think he worked at Apple. It's called "Love is the Killer App." So I think it's becoming part of the, what Jean Houston calls the zeitgeist, because she loves to use a lot of foreign words. But it's in the air, it's in the culture, it's in the vibrational energy of the universe right now. It's coming more and more. You're seeing more and more books written on love, more and more books written on happiness, more and more books written about joy. And I think that's what we all want. And everything else is like a substitute for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And you've been so amazing since I started this project and so supportive of Love is the True Black. And I just wanted to know from you, what was it about Love is the True Black that spoke to you?
Well, I think first you spoke to me because your essence is so pure and so of service, as we talk about, that I was attracted to that. And secondly, I think what I was attracted to is the fact that I think everybody has a purpose in life. Everybody has some essence that's them, that wants to come into expression. And what I believe is that our truest level of fulfillment comes from having expressed that fully in the world, manifesting it in some way so that you feel like, wow, who I am has found a way to express itself, and it actually contributes to the whole. And in the messages that people write on their arms and sometimes their foreheads and other parts of their body that you do so beautifully, they're expressing, I think, that essential nature of their essence as a message. Trust love, choose love, not fear, be yourself, choose to make a difference, I've got your back, whatever it is. Those messages are the universal messages of the essence of who we all are. And I thought about this in terms of the diversity, because those messages, a lot of them are very different, but they're all very similar. And when you look at a Love is the True Black slideshow of a lot of people's statements to the world, it's moving. And there's a lot of diversity, but there's something that's in unity with all that. There's something essential down to the core essence, values, that I think anyone in any culture holds important. Relationship, love, respect, making a difference, being yourself, feeling free, etc. And so for me, I love the idea that we are taking this essentialness and finding a way to express it into the world in a way that really touches and moves people at a deep and profound level. So I definitely wanted to be part of that and have my participants and the people in Transformational Leadership Council be part of that, both to experience it, because I think it made everyone think really deeply, God, if I could only say one thing to the world, what would it be? And then it really cuts through all the crap and gets right down to the essence of, wow, that's what I really stand for. That's who I really am. That's what I think is important. And when you see that in the aggregate, it's very moving.
I think it was Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough.
That's true. I believe he did say that.
Yeah. And so when we cut people down to just a few short words, I think you kind of put the impetus on them to express that piece, but in a simple way that not only can be profound for them, but for people seeing it too.
Yeah, and it doesn't need a lot of explanation. That's what's so beautiful about it. When you get down to the essence of things, it's just, boom, it just connects like a child holding a kitten, or somebody offering a flower to a soldier. It's like it doesn't need any more words. It's just there.
Yeah, that's the other one, isn't it? A picture's worth 1,000 words, something like that. Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to ask you was, I certainly see, and I'm conscious too that because I've now started kind of moving in this space of talking about values versus beliefs, and kind of really investigating and looking into what we've created and how we can develop it further, that there are things that are being attracted to me that are very similar to the types of work that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. But so there's a feeling to me that there have been so many things that have come up since I started working on this project that it feels like this conversation is being drawn more into the general space of society. And I wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, I think I agree with that I think it is becoming more part of the conversation, if you want to say, and part of the... I do a lot of work in corporations, in schools, at conventions, and with all kinds of populations in over 50 countries I've spoken in and run workshops in, and I see as I travel around this awakening that's occurring everywhere in Russia, in Iran, in Dubai, in Africa, in the Asia, and so forth, that these messages that are being shown on this project you're doing, the words, they're being spoken more. They're being, there's for lack of a better word, a spiritual awakening, an awakening to the heart over the mind. Mm-hmm. They're both important, but the heart has been, not been so acknowledged or listened to. We've been a very rational, scientific society, certainly in America and Europe. And I think that's shifting. I think there's a rise of the feminine spirit we're seeing everywhere. There's a rise of feminine empowerment, which I think is fabulous because we need that energy in the world.
I agree.
I'm sure you would, being a woman. But as a man, I see it and I feel it. It's important because there's just a more caring, a more embracive, a more loving, a more nurturing quality that needs to come into the world that's been missing for a long time. And also the arts and joy, and there's so much going on. I see it in the movies, I see it on television shows, things are being discussed, the plots of movies and mm-hmm. TV shows. There's more authenticity, there's more people talking about what's really real, there's more people talking about the essence of wanting to have the full expression. We see freedom rising up all over the world, some places still trying to squash it, but that conflict is now visible in all the countries that would have normally been considered oppressive and dictatorial and inhumane. And I see it just in the rise of, people addressing things like sex trafficking, the abduction of children, the abuse of women in terms of their vaginal parts in Africa and so forth. So it's a conversation that's occurring not just among white middle-class Americans. It's occurring all over the world, and people are standing up in a way for a deeper truth, if you will. And the other thing I think that's happening is there's a growing sense of spirituality, not so much in religiosity, but in terms of the essence of what spirituality is, all the qualities that we would call spiritual, and people having a direct relationship with whether they call it source energy or infinite intelligence or God or Allah or whatever. There's more people opening to that. More and more people talking about near-death experiences, about life after life, about reincarnation, and whatever your beliefs are, all of that is in the conversation. Whereas before, when I grew up, you didn't talk about religion, you didn't talk about sex, and you didn't talk about money. Those were taboo topics because they were controversial. And now everybody's talking about it.
I think even for me, when we look at the conversation about spirituality, I started investigating spirituality and personal development when I was 15, and I spent a number of years, really involved in it, doing a lot of reading and attending a lot mm-hmm. of things. And I stepped away because it felt really woo-woo. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until probably about 6 years ago when I retrained to be a coach that I started... I had always lived my life by some fundamental principles and had certain beliefs that I kept true, but it wasn't something that I really spoke about. Mm. But I've definitely felt, as I've come back into this personal development environment over the last 6 years, I feel like I've definitely felt the shift from it being this kind of more woo-woo, out there, less acceptable conversation mm-hmm. to something, where we can hear people talking about love in business.
Well, people are talking about how can we experience heaven on earth in our company.
Yes.
I mean, that was never a conversation you had in the corporations before. And people in the corporations are starting to say, we want our company and our products and our processes to be ecologically sustainable, to not be abusing people in third world countries, to be, ethical decisions that we would make. I mean, people are standing up for that, and it's really exciting to watch that.
Yeah, I was reading an article the other day, and I was coining for me it was the first time I'd heard it was philanthropreneur. So it was talking about a breed of people looking or coming up that are looking not only to generate wealth, but to do good and look after everyone in that.
Right. Well, I went to a conference last October in Boulder, Colorado, and there was a group of people in their 30s that were there, as well as people older like me and John Gray and Michael Beckwith and people like that. And I walked away so hopeful and so kind of relieved. There's this younger generation that's not only awake spiritually, and not in a woo-woo way. It's almost like this is the way it is. But they're also technologically savvy. They're extremely brilliant entrepreneurs, and they're finding ways to solve problems in a way that's profitable, whether it's solar energy or water or communication. I remember one guy from Apple, is retired now. He was from Apple. I think he worked for Apple and then Google. And he was saying he's hacking all the world's problems, figuring out, he described some of it as 23 major world problems. I've solved 3 of them. And he said, I don't even say that until I've duplicated it in several areas, and then I'm going to put these out and let everyone just go and do the thing that's a solution. But there's that kind of excitement, self-confidence, technological awareness, the awareness of a global concept, but most people don't think globally. But I was wonderfully pleased by this energetic, enthusiastic desire to make a difference, but to do it in a way that is also economically viable. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I think it is exciting because I think for a long time too that was one of the things where people were not associating doing good with it being a financially viable option or career. Well,
I've said for years you can do well and do good at the same time.
Yes.
And I've proven that in my own career, and I know there's literally millions of people around the world who are doing that, and it's all over. I subscribe to a number of things online that talk about good news, and people in Holland and in Germany and in Malaysia and China are coming up with incredible solutions. I think all the solutions exist right now. It's just a matter of education, distribution, and enrollment. So it's if no one invented anything new, I think we have everything we need. It's just becoming aware of it and then being committed to doing it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.